Well, I thank you guys for coming. So as I was saying earlier, before some of you got logged in, this is one of our projects that we're going to be working on, is the candlestick project. And somebody had requested this particular project. And so I thought, well, we'll make it in class. Got to let Steve in. Steve needs all the help you can get, right, Steve? All right, so we'll minimize that. So this is our first project that we're going to work on. And, you know, there's all kinds of different tricks of the trade. Each image will give us some different challenges. So what I did was I took this image and I used my assistant, which is the old chat GPT. So I simply asked it, can you simplify the image and make it a black and white image only? A lot of people ask me about making them logos, and that's the first thing I tell them. Well, if you could get me a black and white version of whatever you want, we can, from there, we can create pretty much whatever we need. So that is one little tip for you. If this was an AI generated image to begin with, then this is what it gave us here. And from this, we can essentially make it look like the original pretty easily. So when we get started here, I really recommend using Inkscape, but learning your slicer first. That is really, like, if you're brand new to 3D printing, there's so many things that we can do with our slicer, and we have a million videos on doing some pretty crazy things with just your slicer. So definitely I would recommend starting there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take this image and save it to my desktop. And then we can go into Inkscape here, and we'll start a new document. See here. So let's go ahead and import our artwork. So we'll hit Control-I. And we'll scroll down here, and there is the artwork in question. Now, one thing that's kind of annoying, the chat images, for some reason, I don't know why, but Inkscape does not like the PNG files created by chat. So we have to open it here on our computer, and then we just hit File, Save As, a JPEG. Now Inkscape will open that file. Like I said, I don't know why it doesn't like those PNG files from chat, but it sure don't. So that's the one we need right there. So then we get our image. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a trace bitmap. So we can just right click on it here and choose trace bitmap. And essentially, this is the only option that I use here in Inkscape, is the brightness and cutoff option. It works really well. Our images are either white or they're black. And you'll see that this will convert this to a vector pretty nicely. So we do have a threshold slider here that we can adjust if we need to. This one, I don't think we really need to too much, so we'll just go ahead and hit apply. And then we have our vector version of our file. Now there's a couple of things that we know that we're going to do right off the bat. Let's go ahead and let's bring in our original image here, just so we have something to reference. So I just dragged and dropped it from my desktop into Inkscape. So there's our original image. So first thing we're going to do, this is really ugly. So we're going to get rid of that. So we're just going to go ahead and hit R on my keyboard. I use a lot of keyboard shortcuts, so I'm always going to tell you about the keyboard shortcut. But right here is your rectangle tool. So the rectangle tool and the ellipse tool, so it's just R and E. So pretty straightforward. Then over here on the right is our snapping, where we can snap to geometry. So we're going to snap right to the edge of this C and just drag out a box like so. And then we can select our arrow key or hit S on the keyboard. That is select. And then we'll shift click the black here. And then we're going to do Control minus. Control minus is difference. Okay, so that cuts. But we can also access that right here. So you see here it says Control plus minus. Union, that puts things together. Control plus plus. So those two are really important to learn because we use those all the time. Break apart, combine, and the corresponding keyboard shortcuts are right here for you as a kind of a reminder. And really the last one that we have to remember is division. There's only 5. So if you can put those to memory, you'll be able to design things pretty quickly. So one of the key things that we got to think about when we're creating artwork is we kind of have to have in our mind how this thing's going to print. And so that can be challenging, especially for people who haven't printed to know exactly how this is going to work. But you can kind of see it's already done here. So we've got a layer of black, right? Then we have a layer, it looks like we have a layer of white, then a layer of black, then a layer of purple, right? So everything is kind of stacked on top of one another. So our artwork has to be kind of like that too. So right now we just have a piece of black. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to Path and Break Apart. And as soon as we do that, we get this. And so what we're going to start in on is this black outline right here. We're just going to change the color of it. Doesn't matter what color. And then we're going to push it to the bottom. You can use your keyboard shortcut, which is the N key on your keyboard, and that will push it all the way to the bottom. Sometimes, and I can't explain why, sometimes that doesn't work, and it drives me crazy. But if you come back up here to Object, then there's an option to lower it to the bottom or raise it to the top. Top is home. And so those are two that we definitely use quite a bit. So what we have now is we have this black plate. That's what we've got going on right now. So we're going to go ahead and, so this piece right here, let me grab the red here. So this red is all one. You see that? That's all one. So that's going to eventually print black. And then we have to decide how or what any type of special thing that we might want to do. And what I mean by that is, for example, we have, this is going to be purple. Our stars are going to be purple. Our force is going to be white. Is there anything special that we want to do with this? And in my case, I don't think there is. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to start in and select my letters here. So I selected my first one, hold Shift key, H, A, M, P, I, the O, and the N. Okay, so that's what I've got going on so far. Now we've lost the pieces on the inside. So let me show you this. So when we go into outline mode, now we can see the pieces that are on the inside as well. I have a toggle key set up where I can toggle between normal and outline because it's something we have to do all the time. But if you go up here to the view menu and you choose display mode, that's how you get between those two, normal, then you come back up here to display mode, outline. So you can see what a pain that would be switching back and forth all the time. So we do have a separate Inkscape setup video that kind of walks you through a couple of things. Setting that toggle is one of them. Also being able to zoom in and out with your mouse wheel. if you're brand new to Inkscape and you just installed it, you can zoom in and out with your mouse wheel, but only if you're holding the control key. That's the default setup for Inkscape, and I don't like that. So there's a way to change that, and that's covered in that setup video. If you can't find it on the channel, just message me and I'll make sure I get you a direct link to it. So at any rate, now we can move all of our lettering, right? But we got to get the inside pieces. So we're just going to hold our shift key again and click on those inside pieces. There's only 3. Okay. So in this case, we have to combine those all into one piece. So we could come up here to path and we could choose combine, or Control K is the keyboard shortcut. And now those are all one piece. And this is really important. You see all these pieces here in our layers palette. If we were to take this into Bamboo right now, we would have to define the color, the thickness of all of these pieces. And we certainly don't want to be bothered to do that. So we want to try and minimize the number of pieces here in Inkscape before we get to Bamboo. So in this case, I'm just going to double click on my layer name. And we could just give it a name. And we have to hit. And then we'll turn off that. When we're done with a graphic, I usually just like to turn it off. Same thing here with the backplate. We can go ahead and double click on it. We'll call it backplate. And we'll just turn it off. Because now we know we're done with that. So the next most obvious thing would be the force, right? So we'll go ahead and select that. Now, if we move this, you can see we're missing 2 pieces, which is the inside of our O. So shift click and the inside of our E, and we shift click that as well. Okay, so then again, we have to combine, which is Control K. So back over here, so we're going to select this one, shift click, this one, and this one, Control K. So now this becomes force, and we could turn that off. And just to remember, down that combine, we could come up here to path and combine if you're not comfortable with keyboard shortcuts. Now let's take a look at what's left here. And we see over here, there is an outline around force. And you can also see here, there's actually a couple of outlines. You see here on the star, but what we have, we don't. So we can go back in and add that in if we want to. All of these little flecks of pieces, I'm going to say we don't need any of it. So let's just go ahead and get rid of all of it. But I think I do want to, at least on this one, I just want to show you how to create that detail right there. So we're going to just do this star right here. When we're doing an offset, we have to duplicate the existing star. So to do that, we can just right click and choose duplicate, or we can hit Control D on our keyboard. D as in dog. So we'll do Control D, and that creates us another star here. And then we'll go ahead and move this down. We'll just move it down here for now. And then we're going to click on this little icon, which is our path effects. That little icon is path effects. And we're going to do an offset. Let's give it a color. Doesn't matter what color. I usually give it a green color. And then an offset. Now, I don't know how much. So let's just start with 4. See what that gives us. And if we kind of compare that to this, we're not too far off. So I think I'm going to go ahead and accept that. So to do that, you go to Path and Object to Path. Okay, and now I want to take my star again, and I want to duplicate it again. I'm going to give it a different color. Doesn't matter what color, just a random color. But this time, when we offset, we're going to offset to the inside. So instead of 4, we're going to go -4. Okay, so now we've offset to the inside. And we'll go ahead and accept that. So we'll go Path and Object to Path. Now, the next thing we're going to do here is we want to create, see right now, all these things are sitting on top of one another. And what I want to do is I want to do something a little bit different. So what I want to do here is I want this to be an outline, and this will all make, I promise, when we get to bamboo, you'll be like, okay, I understand why he did what he did, but probably not until we do get to bamboo. But this black, we just need to duplicate it, okay? And we're just going to slide it down a few pegs. It doesn't really matter. But then we're going to take the inside of our star and shift click the black, and we're going to do Control minus. Now remember, Control minus is difference. Now it doesn't look like we did anything, but if we give it a color, now you can kind of see what we have. So we have a full-size black star, then we have this piece here. But remember, we lost, let's see here. Yes, we lost that star that we needed. So I'm just going to back up here. So this, I needed to make a duplicate. Then I can shift click. Then I can Control minus. Then I'll give it a different color. So we need all of these stars. We need this one, and then the border, and then this one, and this one. Like I said, this will all make more sense when we get over to bamboo. So over on here, we're just going to go with just we're just going to create this little border here. That's it. So on this star, we're going to duplicate it. So I just hit Control D to duplicate. And we're going to go ahead and offset it. So we're going to offset it 4 again, just like we did on the other star. But we do have to enter a negative value because we're offsetting to the inside. So it needs to be -4. We'll just give it a different color here. It doesn't matter what color. So we need to do the same thing that we did over here. So right now we just have one piece of black and one piece of green, and we want another piece of black. So we're going to go ahead and duplicate it. Just move it down a little bit. And then we're going to take our green, duplicate that, shift click the black, Control minus. Remember, that's difference. And then we'll just give that a different color just so we can kind of see this. So now we've got this going, those 3 pieces. Okay? And just remember path and difference right here if you don't want to remember those keyboard shortcuts, or it's too confusing, or whatever the case might be. All right? So now I think I'm just going to stop there because I want to kind of get to the meat and potatoes. We really should draw this handle back in for our megaphone, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now. I'm just going to go ahead and take these elements that we've got going on here, whatever's left here, and we're going to go ahead and select those just like this. And we'll just go ahead and hit Control K, or excuse me, Control plus to bring them all back together again. And this will be white. We'll just call it white. We can leave it whatever color we want. We can give it just a different color here. So now let's go ahead and turn on our back plate and just turn these things on here. And so now you can kind of see what we've got going on here. So what I do want to do is I do want to add this outline around force. So I do want to do that, and I do want to change that color as well. So on force here, let's go ahead and duplicate it. And I'll tell you what, let me undo that. It's a good idea when we're selecting. Oh, there, we did name it. Is to remember when we duplicate it, it always duplicates it to the top of the layer stack. But when we're doing offsets, we always want to work on the lower one. So we have to remember what we got selected. When we duplicate it, it goes to the top. So we want to work on this one. So now we'll go to offset. And I'm guessing we're going to offset about 6. Don't really know. Let's just try that. And then let's give it a different color so we could see that. And you could see over here, right? There's a little bit of gap there. So maybe 6 is a little harsh. We'll back it off to 4. And we'll just call that good enough. All right. So I do want to look at one other thing. Yep. See how this is connecting right there? So, and it's almost connecting here. So let's make it connect. Let's try 4.5, something like that. Yep, it connects now. All right, perfect. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to select that, and we'll go to path and object to path, and that kind of sets that offset. Something to keep in mind, it is important when we go into Bamboo that we don't have those live path effects, because if we were to just save this as an SVG and go into Bamboo, Bamboo does not read those live path effects. And so visually here, we'll see the offset. In Bamboo, we wouldn't. Same thing with text. Text, we have to convert to a path. Otherwise, Bamboo would just eliminate the text as well. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Now, I don't like these interior pieces. So I'm going to get rid of them. And I do that all the time. So we're just going to go to path and break apart. And we're going to go back to path and union. I feel like that looks better. So we're going to run with that. Okay. The other thing that we might consider doing is going ahead right here all across champion and just making that one line. So that's what I'm going to do because I think that looks better. So we want to make sure we're selecting our red here, and all these nodes, just select them and delete them. Just hit your delete key, and there you go. Now it's straight across. One other tiny little thing I might do is I do not like this space. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that too. So we're going to just grab a rectangle, and you're the designer, so you can make it however you want to make it. So I'm just going to look at this and see where I want that to be. Maybe turn off snapping here. Make sure I'm grabbing the right piece here. And we'll call it good right there. All right, so now we can go ahead and take our green rectangle, shift click our red, and we're going to weld those together. So Control plus. Whoops, daisy, what's going on here? Let's take a look, make sure we've got selected what we're supposed to. There we go. Something like that, okay? So I think I'm gonna be happy with that. So the next thing we want to do is set what physical size this is going to be in the end. So I'm going to say 3 inches for this example because it's kind of a big piece here. And a 3-inch keychain, I think, will be pretty good. So 3 inches equates to 75 millimeters. So you want this lock turned on. And for the width, we'll do 75. And so that will shrink it down proportionately here. So it's 3 inches long. And you can see here 26 millimeters tall, which is just a little over an inch. So now we'll go ahead and save this. And we're going to save it to the desktop, and we'll call it Champion Force. And we'll go ahead and hit save. And by default, Inkscape always saves as an SVG, so we're ready to go. So now we can hop over to Bamboo, and we can finish this off. So let's go ahead and start a new project here. So here we are in Bamboo. And I know we need purple, so we might as well go ahead and set that up. We need white, we need black. So white, purple, and black. Do we need anything else? Let me go back and look at my image again. Nope, I think that's it. And one other thing that I did, and I guess we could go ahead and fix it right now, is the heart. I included it with all the other pieces, but the heart is purple. So we might as well go ahead and break this apart. So let's go ahead and hit path and break apart. And this heart should not be grouped with those other pieces. So we're going to just shift click these other pieces. Control plus. So these are all connected, but now our heart is separate. And then we'll just resave our SVG and come back in here. All right, so here we are in Bamboo. Now this is something that I would really encourage you to think about that I did not realize. A couple years ago, I had a Creality printer and it came with Creality print. And my thought was I had to use the Creality print slicer because I had a Creality printer. And I never used my printer. At the end of the day, I never used that printer. I brought it home. I printed a couple of benchies and a couple other Make World files, and that was it. And I said, you know what, the heck with this. I'm not going to fight this because I don't understand the slicer. But I kept watching these Bamboo videos. I was like, man, I wish I could use Bamboo, but I don't have a Bamboo printer. So anyhow, I ditched the Creality printer, went out and bought a Bamboo printer, and then later learned that I could have been using Bamboo all along. So I get messages all the time about people having issues in their slicer. Well, you can just download and use Bamboo. Even if you have a FlashForge printer or whatever printer you have, doesn't matter. You can use Bamboo. So you can follow along, save the file here in Bamboo, and then take it into your slicer and send it to your printer just like you normally would. The other day, I made a video. I don't know if I don't even remember if I posted it, but somebody was wanting to make a can opener, but with Creality print. And so I downloaded Creality print and I made the video. But things that we take completely for granted here in Bamboo is so completely backwards in Creality print. I mean, I can't even imagine anyone even using that slicer, because it's just such a backwards way of doing things, in my opinion, when I'm so used to Bamboo Studio. So you can definitely use Bamboo Studio with any printer. It doesn't matter. So anyhow, let's go ahead and import our artwork. So we're just going to hit Control-I, and there is our logo here. Now it's already sized to our finished size. So if we go to scale, you'll see it is 75 millimeters wide, which equates to 3 inches. And so what I like to do is I like to name all of my parts first. So it's always going to come in 10 millimeters thick. That's just the default. And then it's always going to accept whatever the first filament color is chosen here. So we'll start here, and this is our back plate. Sometimes it's hard to remember what is what. So you just have to think about, well, what did you create here? Well, that is the star back. And then what's this piece? That is the megaphone. You can always go back into Inkscape. I have 2 screens, so I can look at Inkscape and see what Inkscape is and know what object's what here. But in that case, we have a heart. And then this is the other star. We'll call it the right star. And then this is probably, let's call it the fill star. That's probably the fill of the star. What it looks like to me, it could be the border, but I don't think it is. No, I don't think so. So that is our force back plate. And then you can see how that is the outline of our star. So we'll call it left star outline. This isn't absolutely essential, but I think it's good practice to go ahead and name all of our pieces. If we want to modify things later, it'll be easier to find them. And that is our right star outline. And then this is our star fill again. Pretty sure. And then that is our star fill on the other, so we'll call it right star fill. And then our force text. All right, so now we've got all that going on. So the next thing then is to define color. So the backplate obviously is going to be white. And then our star, let me see here. Yes, is going to be black. Our megaphone is going to be white. Our heart is going to be purple. Our right star is going to be purple. And we'll call this purple. I may not have that exactly right. I don't know. Our force backplate, what is that? Let's look at our original here. Purple, all right? And you know what we didn't do, and it's okay that we didn't do it, but this backplate was supposed to have another border of white. But it's okay that we didn't do it, but we could always go back in and do it. But that's why it's a little bit different here. So what that means is our backplate here, that's got to be black because we didn't do a white one. And then our force backplate, that is going to be white. So we're going to leave that alone. The left star outline is going to be purple. And then our champion text is going to be purple. And that's going to be purple. And this is going to be purple. And purple. And that's going to be white. All right. So this is what we've got going on so far. And if we just sliced it just the way it is, you can see that doesn't look quite right. Looks pretty good except for our force here. So, and what I did there, I think our force is what? The backplate's purple and the foreground is white. So I don't think I have that quite right. So this is right, but our force backplate, let's find that. That should be purple. That's better. Now if we sliced it, there we go. That's our expectation. So now this is starting to look pretty much like the keychain did, right? So let's go back here and let's go ahead and start setting up all of our various thicknesses. I think the easiest thing to do is to select the whole assembly and come up here and change everything to 1 to start with. Because that's usually what I do with keychains, is build off of 1s and then just start in on my backplate here. So we're just building a keychain. We're not doing can openers or anything like that. So typically on my keychains, I like to make those 4 millimeters. So the backplate will be 4 millimeters. And then the star here is 1 millimeter. And I want to put that on top of 4. So the way this works is we take half of the thickness of whatever we're moving, which is 0.5, and add it to what we want to put it on top of. So this would be 4.5. And this is something when you kind of get used to it, comes pretty naturally. So now you can kind of see what that looks like, right? And then we just keep moving on for the rest of the pieces. So we've already figured out that that was 4.5. So this is 4.5. A lot of our elements will sit at 4.5. Our heart, it's purple. It's going to sit at 4.5. The right star here, it's going to sit at 4.5. The fill star here, now this one's going to be a little bit different here. I got to look at something real quick and make sure. Let's just go ahead and move it. So this one's going to be a little bit different because we have our 4 millimeter backplate and our 1 millimeter little star backplate too. So 4 and 1 is 5 plus half of this. So that's 5.5. So 5.5. Oh, I'm hitting my arrow key. don't mean to do that. 5.5. There we go. So now you can see the fill is sitting right on top of that little back plate there. So that's what we want. All right, so got that. Our force back plate, it's going to sit at 4.5. And then our left star outline, now that's going to sit right there. This is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have to make it thicker, first of all. Actually, yes, we're going to have to make it thicker because I want it to stick above this. So let's take care of that right now. So go to scale and let's set that at 1.5. Okay. And then we have to calculate where it's going to sit. Well, it's going to sit at 4, 5, 6. It's actually going to sit right here on this black plate. So it should be 5.75. So let me put it at 5.75, and then we'll go back and explain the calculation there. So that's what we want. You see how that's sitting proud? So this is 1.5 thick. That's 0.75 plus 1 plus 4. So that's how we got to 5.75. Now, if you want, there's another way. If you don't care to keep track of the math, I'll show you an alternate way where you don't have to keep track of the math. So but I just want you to know how to calculate that math. So champion, I'll show you what we do. So if we don't want to calculate math, we don't have to. We can just zoom out a little bit and move this. And we're just going to move this champion just randomly anywhere. Okay. Then we can use our assembly tool. So we select this, go to your assembly tool, and we define the first fixed face, which is I want this champion text to sit on this face. And then we come underneath and we zero that out. Now, this is where the challenge comes in, is it doesn't always work, but that's how it's supposed to work. And I really don't have a solution as to why it doesn't work that way. So that's why it's good to know how to make the calculation. So our champion text is 1, and our plate is 4. So that's why it would be 4.5. We take half the thickness of the champion plus the thickness of our plate. And now you can see that's sitting on black. We'll come back to the assembly tool. We might decide to use that here again. But like I say, sometimes it doesn't work. So we've got that. So really, we only have force left. Is that right? So let's go ahead and try our assembly tool again. Okay, I'll give it another try. It normally does really actually work really well. So we'll click on that, and we'll click on this face again. Come underneath here and click on this face and just zero that out. Still does not want to work. I don't know. I don't have an explanation for that. So we'll go back to the math here. So this is 4 plus 5, 5.5. So we just select that at 5.5. 5.5. And there you go. Okay. So now that completes the keychain, except for our little keychain hardware. That's the only thing that we need. Okay. Now, if you go to our Patreon page, there is a file on the free Patreon that has this little key tag that we're going to add. So we're just going to hit Control-I and go to our desktop, and I'm going to search for key. And it's just a little file that I made. It's just a 8mm circle with a 4mm circle. It's 4 millimeters thick, and that's why we make our backplate 4 millimeters as well. And we only want this to stick out far enough to hold our keychain hardware. Control-1 will allow us to look straight down on a design, and then we can more easily line things up. So you only want that sticking out far enough for your little jump ring. Okay, so depending on what keychain hardware you're using, depending on how far that would stick out. But we do want to make it black because we don't want it's switching colors back and forth from black to white just for that. So let's do that. And then we have to take the key tag and we have to merge it to the main assembly. So let's go ahead and do that. Select them both. So let's select this, Shift Control the main assembly. You do have to use Shift and Control, and then we can right click and merge. And now that will print correctly. Now there was one other thing. I don't know if we didn't make it or what, but where's the outline for that star? So I'm just going to go through here real quick and see. If we don't, we just, oh, there it is. We never dealt with that. We never dealt with that. Okay. Well, now's the time to deal with it. So we know we need that to be 1.5 millimeters. Okay. And we need that to sit on top of our 4 millimeter plate. So that would be 4.75. Okay. So now you see we got that extra little detail there that we didn't have previously. And I will do two things. I'm going to give you the SVG. So if you want to just take the SVG that we created in Inkscape and come right to Bamboo and try to replicate all of this, right? I think you can see that we really need to nail down the calculations on the Z height. That is the biggest thing in Bamboo. When you're building files this way, you really have to understand how that Z height works. So I really encourage you to take the SVG and get Bamboo nailed down. And then once you can do that in your sleep, then focus on, how to actually create the SVG in Inkscape. But let's go ahead and save this. So I'll give you the finished file as well, but I don't know what you do with it, but you can have it. And, you can also probably just trade out this text for something else. So, you could kind of use this as a base template, so to speak. Okay, so that one's taken care of. That one's a done deal. And so now what do we want to do? Let's go. And I'm going to stop here just for a second and ask, is there anything that you want to see or ask a question about as it relates to what we did in Inkscape or what we did here in Bamboo before we take a look at our candlestick project? That's the beauty of these live classes, is being able to ask your questions.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So, because I was trying to make like a mirror thing earlier and it kind of like the stars. So you don't take the half, so you do the 4 plate and then the 1 of the black star, not the half of the black star to put the purple on top. You actually add the 1.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
because we want the bottom face of this to be sitting on here, and we know that is at 5. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
so,
Thank you.
yeah. Sometimes I even still to this day I get mixed up, and I don't add the whole thing. I was like, oh, well, that's why. Sometimes I get lazy and I use the assembly tool because then I don't have to calculate. But sometimes that assembly tool doesn't like to work for us. So, yep. All right, so now we can take a look at our little candlestick project. We'll come over here to Inkscape. We'll create a new document here. Now, I don't know how big that candlestick was, but it looked kind of big. So we're going to say that it holds a 6-inch candle, a 6-inch diameter candle. So we're going to just create a circle. That's kind of step 1 here. And we're going to resize this circle to fit a 6-inch candle. So 6 inches is really 150 millimeters. There's roughly 25 millimeters per inch. It's not exactly that, but it's 25.4 millimeters per inch. So when we're talking about 6 inches, we're talking about 150 millimeters. So we're going to resize our circle to be slightly more than that. So if the candle is exactly 6 inches, then we need a little bit of wiggle room. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 160 for the width. So now we have a circle that's exactly 160 millimeters. And then we're going to duplicate this circle. And we're going to, oh, what I just did there. Hold on just a second. Somebody's trying to get in. There we go. All right. So what we're going to do is, let's see, did I duplicate it already? I did. So we're going to go to this lower one, and let's go ahead and make it a different color. And we're just going to make it a little bit bigger. So in this case, we're going to make it 6 millimeters bigger. So we'll do 166, something like that. And then we'll go ahead and center these up. So we can use our alignment tools here, and relative to the last selected, and then this one and this one. And so now you can kind of see we have this, okay? So then what we want to do is we want to duplicate this piece here. So we're going to duplicate that, and we can go ahead and push it to the bottom of our layer stack. That's fine. And then we're going to take our green circle, shift click this kind of tannish circle, and then we're going to go Control minus. That's cut, and let's just give it a different color. So now you can see we have that and that, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this, and let's just call it Chanel candle and hit save. Okay, so let's go into bamboo and let's go ahead and build the plate, and then we'll come back and we'll do the base. So we're going to hit Control I, and we'll go to our desktop here. There it is. So we really just have 2 pieces. So this one, I don't think we have to do a whole lot with. The bottom plate here, let's go ahead and make it, I don't know, let's do 6. We'll do 6 millimeters. And then this one, let's do twice that. Let's do 12. And so if we look here on the move tool, you'll see that this is sitting on the build plate. One piece of your model always has to be on the build plate, and it's always the biggest piece. So in this case, we have a 12 millimeter rim. So that's why it's showing the Z height of 6, because it's always in the middle. It's always in the middle. And so over here on this piece, we're going to alt click here in the middle piece. It's 6 millimeters thick. So you would think that this would be the Z height of 3, but it's not. You see, it's a Z height of 6. So we want to make it 3 so that both of those pieces are on the build plate. So that is that little rim that our candle is going to sit on, and that little rim kind of holds the candle in place. I don't know. Maybe we'll make it taller now that I look at it. So let's go ahead and alt click the rim here, and then go to scale, and let's make it like, I don't know, 18. We'll make it just a little bit more. And then we have to reset the circle inside because it moved. So this, let's go back to 3, because this is 6 millimeters thick, our bottom plate there. So that's why it's 3. So now everything is sitting on the build plate just like that. And we have a little bit more of a rim there. Okay, so that's a good start. So now we'll go back into Inkscape and we'll finish the base. So let me find the image that I thought about doing this. Let me just show you this one. I thought about doing this as the base, but that is not the picture that she originally showed. So let's go ahead and pull that in. So I don't think she wants that, would be my guess. This is what we're after right here. So let's go ahead and delete that. So this is what we're after. So this is that piece that we just created, right? So what do we see here? Well, here, I believe this is actually 3D printed. And if you look here, the black part is like just a thick black, and then the white is sitting on top of the black. Okay, now we're not going to do it that way because we're going to be difficult. So we're going to actually have the white recessed into this black border here. It's a little difficult to explain, but that's what we're ultimately after. So we're just going to change that up a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and drag over this logo that I plucked off the old interwebs. So there it is. Okay. And all we have to do, of course, is right click and trace bitmap. And it's going to give us a reasonably good result here because we have good artwork that we started with. So we can go ahead and delete that now. And if we go into outline mode, you can see we do, in fact, have a vector version of our Chanel here. And maybe the first thing to do is to resize this to what I think will be approximately the finished size. So I think what we'll do is resize this to 150 millimeters. So this, the base, because this looks like in the image, the base looks roughly the same width as the candle holder itself, right? So there you go, right? So that's my thought process there. And then we're going to go ahead and duplicate this, and we'll come down to the bottom, duplicate, and let's give it a different color. And we need to offset this. We need to create this little offset right here. So we're going to start with 3 millimeters and see if we like that. So I don't think I think I wanted 3 or 4. Let's try 4. What the heck? I only live once. I like that. I think I do. Let's see what 3 looks like though, just for fun. Okay, I like 3. So we're going to run with 3. Okay, so we do have to set this now. So we're going to have to go to path, and we're going to have to go to object to path. Now we could, in theory, take this into Bamboo just the way it sits, but we're going to do a little bit of extra work here. We're going to take this green piece, and then when we get over to Bamboo, maybe you'll see why I did what I did. But we're going to take this green piece, and we're going to duplicate it. So that's step 1. And then we are going to, we're going to move that duplicate down a couple of notches. And then this black, we're going to go ahead and duplicate the black, shift click the green, control minus. Okay, and then let's just give that a different color. So this is what we've got. We've got that, and then we have our border. So let's go back to our selection tool. So we have our border, and then we have this. Okay, so those are the 3 components that we're going to use to make the candle base. So let's go ahead and save this.
Somebody hand up, Kev.
LaShwanda, yeah, go ahead. Just unmute yourself and ask away. Yeah, you guys can butt in whatever you want.
Yes, hello. So I'm gonna ask a question because I never used Escape before. Can this be done in like Silhouette?
Here's what I really cannot overemphasize enough. Take the time, learn Inkscape.
Okay.
Because in a very serious way, there's, you know, we haven't even really touched the surface. But, you know, especially people who are new, Silhouette costs money to make SVGs. Inkscape is completely and totally free. And I know it's scary. Trust me, I was there one time. And I looked at Inkscape and I was like, whoa. But no, if you take the time and learn, you know, we have a lot of, all of our teachings for the most part aren't like, well, this menu, this button does this and this button does that. All of our teachings are project-based, which I think are more interesting and entertaining because we're actually making something. Every video we have, we're actually making something. But so the short answer is yes. Yes, you can use Silhouette. But if there's anybody here, you feel free to speak up. But there is one challenge about Silhouette is it's not necessarily a negative about Silhouette. It's just what it is. When you export an SVG from Silhouette, there's a lot of times where you cannot go direct to Bamboo because Bamboo does not interpret Silhouette SVGs properly. Earlier, you remember when I was talking about when we were adding an offset and then we had to go to path and object to path?
Right. Yes.
We had to do that because Silhouette or Bamboo would not recognize our offset if we didn't. Well, there's similar things in Silhouette where Silhouette recognizes it, but when we try to go to Bamboo, then Bamboo doesn't recognize it. So that's one of the negatives. So what we do is if we are going to use Silhouette, we go to Silhouette, we open the file in Inkscape, because the very same file that Bamboo can't open, Inkscape can. So then we resave the file as an SVG and then from Inkscape and then go into Bamboo. So it's like all this kind of backwards thing. So if you take your knowledge, once you really kind of get into it a little bit, if you take your knowledge that you've already have in Silhouette, if you're used to using Silhouette, you'll see that that knowledge transfers very well to Inkscape.
Okay.
Only difference is you kind of have to know the Inkscape way. Like how does this layer palette work? Like how do we turn the visibility of things on and off? You know, this is a transparency slider, so we can lower the transparency so we can see through things. So all those same things that we can do in Silhouette, we could do here just a little bit differently. You know, the menus. Well, where do I find this, that, and the other? So it's just familiarizing yourself with the Inkscape interface. So I definitely would not, you know, if you're brand new, I definitely wouldn't go out and buy Silhouette because Inkscape's totally free. Now, bigger picture, if you think about the bigger picture, everything that we do on a day-to-day, just in our normal business, marketing materials, of course, we're making SVGs, we could make t-shirts. Inkscape has an amazing plugin for Inkscape. It's totally free, by the way, that we can create embroidery designs with Inkscape. There's just so many things that we can do in Inkscape that, of course, we can't do in Tinkercad, we can't do in Fusion, we can't do in Silhouette, that it's really worth the time to develop our skills here in Inkscape. Because who knows, someday we might get an embroidery machine and we want to start creating embroidery designs. And we'll already have most of the Inkscape skills needed to create embroidery designs. So I would really encourage everyone to take the time to learn Inkscape. Like it's definitely, you know, you can create all your marketing materials and everything can be done right here in Inkscape. And there's other advantages to Inkscape. I have all kinds of different little plugins that I program myself. When I go to extensions and I come down here to the STL, the 3D warehouse, I created little different tools that will automate the process of creating artwork. I found myself doing the same things over and over and over again. Inkscape has the ability to allow me to program a tool to automatically do a lot of the things that I do over and over again. So I have all these different tools available to me. So it's just a really neat program, and the fact that it's totally free, you know, that's even better yet. So.
Because I mean, I have Inkscape. I downloaded on my laptop, but every time I try to go in there, I get intimidated. Like, oh no, I can't.
Yeah. I totally get it. You know, it's just like when we first get our 3D printers, we're totally intimidated. You know, but once you figure it out, like you really invest the time and figure it out. Of course, there's a huge, you know, on YouTube. There's a guy. His YouTube channel is called Logos by Nick, and he has a whole Inkscape course. It's $18 for an entire course on Inkscape. Now, I don't think I would watch every single video that he has to offer, but for $18, for his course. Like, he goes into some amazing things, and I love his teaching style. So like, if you were looking for an inexpensive thing, starter course, Logos by Nick, that's his website. Also, Logos by Nick. $18 is his Inkscape course, and it's definitely worth every penny. And like I said, his presentation style, short, sweet, to the point, unlike mine. But no, really, his videos are very short, concise, and I just love the way he teaches. Like, I can actually pay attention to his videos start to finish.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, definitely well worth it. All right.
Okay, but hold on
Yep.
real quick before we
Yep.
move to bamboo. So you did the circle for 160 to give a little wiggle room for the candle to sit on, and then you did the Chanel sign at 150 because of the offset, or
No reason in particular. So if we go back and look at the original, this is roughly right the width of this. So I just decided to make it 150. So it is technically a little bit smaller than our top piece, but there's no magic about that. It's just a value that I said, oh, I'll just make it 150.
oh, okay.
So yeah, so you can make it, obviously you can make it whatever you want if you didn't want that big of a base, but yeah. So no, there's nothing magic about that particular number. All right, so let's pop over here. So we're back in bamboo, and let's go ahead and create another build plate here. And we will. I remember when I first started with bamboo, I did not know how to pan. I don't even know if I knew how to zoom in, but I sure didn't know how to create a new build plate. It's just that little button right there. Didn't know that. So I remember those days. It was very frustrating because to me, it wasn't completely intuitive how all this worked. But now it's second nature. So go ahead and Control I. That is our import. And let's see here. We got to go to our desktop. And I think we just import the same Chanel candle SVG. Now, when we import it, we have our original base plate too. We could, and just as a side note here, when you're building stuff in Inkscape, we could select this and turn that off. Okay, and then if I resave this, then I went back into bamboo. I'm just going to re-import that file just to show you. So we'll go back to our desktop here, and I re-import that file. See, that piece is no longer part of that SVG because we hid it. So I do that a lot. Or what we could have done, let me just undo that. What we could have done is create a new layer. So right here, you can see we can click this little plus button that allows us to create a new layer. And then we could take this and right click and move to layer 2. Okay, and then we can just turn off that layer. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll hit Control S. We'll come back over here. And we'll just re-import that artwork again just to show you how that works. See, we only have that piece because we turned that layer off. So one of those two things, I either just turn it off, but sometimes the reason sometimes you might want to create a new layer is kind of a normal practice, because we might have some things turned off. And then if we turn off more things, then we don't know what things we turned off, what's what. Where if everything is on one layer, then it's just easier to keep track of what the heck is what here. So that's what I would recommend. Create a new layer, then turn off that layer. So yeah, so that brings us back to here. So remember, we had 3 pieces. We had the outline, and then we had the solid, and then we had the fill, right? So we had 3 different pieces here. So this first piece is the solid, so we'll go 4. The second piece here is the outline, and it's going to be 4 as well. But the text here, that's going to be 1 as far as color-wise. Now, on the back plate here, how thick do we want to make this? Well, we know that this is approximately 6 inches. So I'm going to say at a minimum, that should be, let's see what 75 looks like. I don't know, but we'll start there, okay? And then on the next piece here, which is our outline, let's go ahead and make that 4. And so this was, what did we say, 75? Yes. So this piece then has to be at 72, okay? Because we want it to sit on top of 75, or excuse me, not 72. We're sitting it on top of 75. So, and this is 4. Half of 4 is 2 plus 75. So in the Z, that becomes 77. Clear as mud? So see, that's what we got. Now that could be cool just like that, right? If we were trying to cut corners, that could be cool like that, that tone-on-tone look. But we want the white letters. So we'll go ahead and make those 2 millimeters thick. Half of 2 is 1. So the Z height needs to be 76 because 1 plus 75, right? So we'll go ahead and make that 76. And there you go. That's what I wanted. I want that little reveal right there. Okay. Now, we can, obviously, we can print it just the way it sits. Or if we only had a single color printer, we could just peel this off, print it on a separate build plate, right? And then just put it in this little channel that we created and glue it in place. So most of us probably have an AMS, but that's, you know, just another option. So just for fun, let's take a look at this, and we'll go ahead and slice the plate and just see how long it takes to print. Seven hours. 7 hours. Well, this is a super thick, you know, this is all solid in here. So there's a lot of, let's look at that. There's a lot of infill here, you can see. So we could adjust those settings maybe and have a little less infill. Definitely a possibility. Let's save some time. But yeah, that base is going to just take a minute to print. So the we could also maybe make it not quite as thick. Also, that could be a potential. We just have to kind of play with it a little bit and see. So what I like to do is on all of my files, you'll see that first build plate, it will have the completed model. So we're just going to go ahead, copy and paste. And then we'll rotate this in a vertical position. And then I'm just going to select this and see how tall it is to give me a rough idea. So this is 116 to the top of that, okay? And then, so what we want to do is take this and we want to stick it up on top here. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to right click and make sure this is centered to the build plate. Then we're going to take this and center it to the build plate. So now both of them are centered. And then we're going to take this and look at what its current Z is. So its current Z is 18. Okay, so that means it's 9. Okay, half of 18 is 9. And remember, this was 116. So if we take 9 and add it to 116, let's see here. Let's see how good my would be. 125. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to select this assembly. And then over here in your objects, we're going to control click this assembly as well. So this is our plate and this is our candlestick, right? So we're going to control click this one and then right click and merge. And then we're going to have these two pieces, that piece and this piece. And we're going to go up here and move this to 125. And now that should be more or less on top. See that? And like I said, only purpose of this is just to get a visual. That's it. And I don't know, maybe that would look better black. Not that. This. Let me get my rim here. Maybe that would look better black. I don't know. Than all white. You kind of have to ignore that because if we were to slice it, even though we're slicing it standing up, see, it kind of that white goes away. The slicer fixes those two pieces when they're conflicting. The meshes are conflicting like that. So that is what our candlestick would look like, and I think it being 3 inches, I think that's good enough. Yeah, did you have a question?
Evan, is there a connector between the plate and the base?
No. So in this case, there isn't. Now we could make one, but I think there's enough surface area there where we could just put some glue where the two are touching.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's how I would do it.
Are you going to break those pieces apart on different plates?
Yes,
that say 2 days, right? Am I right?
This? Oh well, yeah. You got to ignore that because no, the reason it was saying 2 days is because we've got it standing up on end, so you would have all these color changes for every single layer. But no, we would print it like this. So this one took 7 hours, and then we would have our plate here. So we did our plate all one color. So what I do is once it's all together on that first one, I copy and paste it, and then we just delete the pieces that we don't need. So we don't need that piece, and all I'm doing is alt clicking and hitting delete on the keyboard, and then this is floating in space, and all we have to do is touch it with our arrow key, and it'll come slamming to the ground. So these are the 2 plates that we have to print. So this one's 7 hours, and this one we can go ahead and turn it back to white. So this will turn back to white, and because that's what the original was, and then go ahead and slice that plate just to take a look at it. 2 hours. So
how thick is that base?
The base is 3 inches thick, 75 millimeters. This one here?
No, I mean the white plate that you set the candle on. I think Shalonda had asked that earlier.
Oh, okay. So the bottom plate, so this piece is 4 millimeters, and then the sides I made 18, I believe. Yep, 18 millimeters tall.
Okay.
And that for no particular reason. I was just making up numbers. So no particular reason there.
Kev, do you know how to round the the top off, like the circle?
Yes, that's
so
yeah.
it won't be sharp.
Right. That's what we're gonna show next. Yep.
Oh.
Are you ready for it? Because we got to go into Blender for that. So yeah, that's one of the drawbacks with Inkscape and Bamboo is we can only deal with like hard edges. So if we're gonna round things off, that's not entirely true, but for this particular example, we've got to go into Blender. But I think you're going to be surprised at how easy it is to create this plate. So if we don't have any other questions about Inkscape and Bamboo right now, we'll pop over to Blender and then we'll show you how to create this plate with nice rounded edges.
Kevin, I just had a question about if you printed the white part separately, what the time difference would be.
Over here?
From the base, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can do it. So good to show you how to test those things if you want to test them. The answer is it won't matter significantly, but let's do it. Let's go ahead and copy and paste. So on this one, we will not have the white. So we'll get rid of that altogether. And let's go ahead and slice this. And this is 6 hours and 6 minutes. Okay. So that's step one there. And then we're going to go ahead and copy the original here and paste it over here. And then we'll have to alt click our black and get rid of that. And then we have to alt click this black and get rid of that. Because on this plate, we're just going to print the white. So this is 6 hours. So how long is this? Well, let's go ahead and slice it. And that is 37 minutes. So we're basically, I mean, round figuring, we're talking 7 hours, right? But you know, not quite, obviously. So then this, getting back over to here, and we slice it. We're at 7 hours and 9 minutes. So we're saving approximately 20 minutes by splitting it. So for me, for fiddling with glue, no, I'm not gonna save 20 minutes on that personally. But the real takeaway here is to understand why there's not a significant difference. When you start on your build plate, you're doing black, 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 all the way up to the white. And now we're switching back and forth from white to black for only a few layers because our white is only 2 millimeters thick, right? So this right here, this number right here is what's important. There's 11 color changes when you're printing it all as one. So 11 color changes, yes, it takes time, but not like crazy time. If this was like 100 changes, that's when we split it up. But if there's not that many color changes, then you're not going to save a ton of time. Because that's all that it's doing. It's those color changes is what's eating your time.
So Kevin, my question is, are you going to do it double-sided so that when you turn the camera holder around, it's showing white on both sides?
Well, I mean, I wasn't. You certainly could. So let me just save this real quick and show you what that looks like. So let's talk about that. What do you do in that particular scenario? That's a good question. So what do you do if you did want, you know, if this was sitting on an end table or something like that, you wouldn't be looking at the back of it, right? But let's just say, I don't know, there's a particular, like maybe you're doing like it's a dining table, right? And you got this as a centerpiece on the dining table, or in that situation, you would want both sides to be identical, right? So what do you do in that particular situation? Well, it does present a problem to some degree because you have this recess. And if you have the recess on the bottom, then we've got an issue with supporting, right? With supports. So how would you do this if you wanted it two-sided? Well, the way I see it, there's really only one option. So let's go ahead and just copy and paste this. There's really only one feasible option, I think, and that is to take this, the base here, and make it 2 millimeters thick. Okay. And then this is 2 millimeters, I believe. That's 4. So let's move that to the build plate at 2. And so what we would do is we would print this, right? And then we would print this just like this is, print this flat, and then just glue on the opposite side, glue that on. And then you would have, you know, obviously this could be in there, and then, you know, this could be over here, right? And then you would have the look on both sides. The only negative to that, of course, is there would be a slight seam. Now, if you wanted, like, if you're like me and have OCD and you wanted it to match, what we could do is print the block and print 2 of these. So in other words, what you would do in that scenario is you would print this, right? And you print 2 plates, one for one side, one for the other, and that little seam would be identical on both sides. And so it might be more appealing that way.
Well, Kevin, can we just change the black? And it's just a question. Just change the middle black that you changed to 2 millimeters, and then the outside change. So say if that's at 75, it'll be 2 down, and then whatever the recess is on the build plate. Then in the air, then you'll just have the black middle piece. How can I explain it? So the sides would literally just be touching the build plate and floating in the air.
Well, see, okay, so let me see if I can explain it this way. If we turn this upside down, okay, right? So this is upside down. Underneath here, none of that is supported. So how can you print that and not have it sag, right? Because you could, as the printer is extruding the filament, you can't.
If it's all black, can't you print it standing up?
Oh, well, oh, okay. Well, I didn't think about that. Yeah, yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. You're right. So your proposal is this, and no, we wouldn't want to do that because, good Lord, let's try it, but I don't think we would want to do that. So we would select this because you have all of that have to be supported, and so let's try it. But I'm pretty sure you'd have.
It's going to be a long print time.
I was going to say you'd have an absolute truckload of supports, but let's just try it. You know, it's funny. I don't know if you guys saw my Toy Story a little popcorn box I made last night, and that's part of that whole design process. When I talk to people about designs, I'm like, yeah, that's a cool design, but how in the world would you print that? Because, you know, it would require so much supports. And you could tell right here, see where it says it's generating support, but it's bogged down. That's a good indicator right there that you're going to have a truckload of supports. So really probably the only, 11 hours. So you can do it, but
Can you
just,
if you have it laid down, could you put a lip on the inside and then print the white separate and then glue the white on later?
yes, that is how we would do that. Yes. That's what I was saying. Like this piece right here could be printed together. And so, yes, so really the only feasible option is to lay this down. And what I would probably do if I were doing it is I would print this block without this. Okay, so I would lay this flat and print that block just like so. Let's go ahead and slice just the block. So it's completely flat on the bottom, completely flat on top. And that's going to take 6 hours roughly. And then I would go ahead and on this plate over here, I would print 2 of these. And then you could glue it on the front and then glue it on the back side. And you'd essentially have your completed candlestick that way. And the only reason I would do it separately and glue it on both sides is just for that symmetry, that little crack that you would have. There would be a little seam that I don't know if you print it in black, you probably wouldn't even see the seam. But if you printed it in, you know, some other color, then a lighter color, you might be able to see the seam a little bit more clearly.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Will it be like a replay? Is this going on YouTube tomorrow sometime?
Yes, it will. Yep. Yeah. All of our lives are do go on YouTube the next day. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. So All right, you guys ready to see how we create this plate in Blender and round it up?
Yes and no.
No, when you see this, you're going to be like, damn, I need to learn Blender because it really, there's certain things that are dead easy. And this is one of those things that is absolutely dead easy. Any other questions before we dive over to Blender? We can always
Not
come
only that, it definitely takes your print game to another level.
It will. It will. But it's baby steps. It's baby steps. You know, the thing about Blender, you think Inkscape is scary. Blender is really scary because there's literally probably 5,000 different tools in Blender for doing all kinds of crazy animations and all this stuff. But all we need are the tools for 3D printing. And the tools that we need in Blender for 3D printing aren't that great. Like there's not that much to it. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. I bet you'll have more success doing this in Blender, what I'm about to show you in Blender, than you will in Bamboo and Inkscape. That's how dead easy this is going to be. Even Kia is going to be able to do this. And she's a stubborn one. I show her all these things and she don't follow my instructions. All right, so here we are in Blender. And this is just a blank workspace. When you open Blender, you're going to see a camera and a light and a little cube. And you would just hit the letter A and your delete button, and that would delete all those things. And then you would see exactly what I'm seeing. So all we have to do is there's two main we have object mode, and then when we have an object, we also have edit mode. Those are the two main ones. But so we're in object mode, we have to add an object to our workspace. And to add an object, we hit Shift A. Now, could we come up here to add? Yes, we can click on add right there. It does the exact same thing. But Shift A, and then we're going to add a mesh. And we're going to add a mesh circle. So there's our circle. Now, we don't care how big our circle is for this particular project. It doesn't matter how big the circle is. Okay? Because when we create our model here, then we're going to pop over to Bamboo. We can resize it in Bamboo. So however big this circle is however big the circle is. We're just going to do it visually. So now we have a mesh circle. You just saw what I did there. There was nothing to that, right? Now if we come up here, now you see we have edit mode, sculpt mode, vertex painting mode, and on and on and on and on. These first two things, you can use those two and not get blown away. So now we do have to go to edit mode because now we want to edit this. So the first thing we want to do is turn our circle into a face. Because remember on our plate in Bamboo, right, we have that bottom plate. Well, that's what we're going to create here. We're going to create that bottom plate. So we're going to hit F on our keyboard. And that's all that does is it creates a face, okay? So now that we have our face, there's something else we need to learn about. And that is up here, there's three different modes. There's vertex selection mode, and there's edge selection mode, and then there's face. The keyboard shortcuts for those are 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so that's really easy. So if we want to select a face, then we just hit 3. If we want an edge, then we hit 2. If we want the vertex is the point. Like a node in Inkscape, that's a vertex here in Blender. So we want to select a face. So we just click. So we're in face select mode, and we clicked on our face, and now our face is selected. So now what we want to do is we want to extrude, and to extrude we hit E. Okay, and you notice here we can extrude. Now, if we only want to extrude in the Z direction, then we would hit Z. So now you see how I can extrude any which way I want, but I need to extrude only vertically. So we hit Z, and then we can only go up and down. So let's just say, I don't know, like that. Okay. Let's go with that right there. So now what do we want to do? We need that little lip, right? So that is inset. So we hit I and we can inset. Okay. So now we've created that little lip right there. Now what do we want to do? Well, we want to go E again, but this time we want to go down. And you see what we just created there? The exact same thing that we had in Bamboo. See, that is not scary, right? So there you go. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to select the edges because we want to bevel them. So we need to be in edge select mode. So we hit the 2 key on our keyboard, and that moves us into edge select mode. And then we can just come in and double click one of these edges. See that? So now these are called edge loops. Okay. And so that you can see it created the whole loop. We're going to hold our shift key down and click on the inside loop. Double click. And now you can see that those are highlighted right there, right? All the way around on both of them. Perfect. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to create a bevel. So to create a bevel, we just hit Control B. And as we move our mouse, you see the bevel that's created, right? So if we don't do anything and we're just moving our mouse, you see how it kind of like gives us almost that chiseled effect, which is pretty cool. But if we use the wheel mouse, watch what happens. See those little extra lines that appear, right? And that gives us rounding. So now we have rounded this. If we hit tab, we can tab out. So now you see how that's been rounded. And then we tab back in, okay? So now I'm going to just double click on this line. And now we get this. So we're going to go ahead and Control B again. And see how now we can create like a bowl, right? And we could add, if we see all those lines we're adding, that adds smoothness is what that does. Okay, so we don't want it that big. We want it something like, maybe something like that, right? And then we tab back out. And so you see, now that's nice and rounded right there. So now we're going to tab back in because we want to take care of our bottom. So we're just going to double click there. And same thing, Control B. And see, we could really go crazy, right? And make it like a bowl. But no, we just want that bottom edge. Something like that. See? Just like that. All right, so that's it. That's basically all we're going to do here. So let's go ahead and we're going to tab back out. And now we can marvel at our little plate here. Now, we do have one more issue, and that is when we started out with our circle, we can define how many segments our circle should have, and that will determine our smoothness. And we didn't do that. So what we see is exactly what we would get. So if we were to take this into Bamboo and print this out, it would look segmented like it does right now. So fortunately, we have a real simple little tool in Blender. It's called a subdivision modifier. I know that sounds scary, but it's not. So we just grab our wrench, and that's where we can apply all kinds of modifiers. And it's really amazing how truly simple they are once you understand what each one does. But there's like 57 modifiers or something like that. There's a lot. But anyhow, we're going to click on Add Modifier. And we click on Generate. And you see down here it says Subdivision Surface. And that does exactly what it says. So it subdivides the surface. See how we have more subdivisions? And we can choose how many subdivisions we want. See how much smoother that is? And if we do one more time, right? Now she's smooth, 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 right? So you remember when we were in Inkscape and we did an offset of like 4 millimeters or whatever, and we had to set it? Well, we have to do the same thing in Blender. We have to set it. So this is we're just looking at it for right now, And if you look here, yes, it looks really pretty, right? But we have to set it. And so all we do is click this little down arrow and hit apply. That's literally all there is to it. I'm going to go ahead and save this as a Blender file because I'll give it to you. Of course, like you say, you can go to Blender. I don't know what website it is, but just type in Blender. It's totally free. It's been free for decades. It's been around forever. So it's totally free. And once you start playing with it, you won't want to get out of it. So we're going to go ahead and just call it Candle Plate and hit save. And then we have to export as an STL file. So then we'll come up here to File and choose Export, and you'll see STL right there. So we'll hit STL and down to our desktop, and we'll go ahead and export the STL file like so. Okay, so then we'll go back into Bamboo here and take a look at importing that STL file. So we'll hit Control-I. And where's it at? We're got to be on our desktop. And there is our candle plate. And it says, hey, this is too small. Do you want to convert it to millimeters? Why, sure we do. Now it's still microscopic, right? But again, we said we didn't care. We didn't care because we can always reset the size here. So in this particular example, now certain models from Blender, no, you want to create them the original size that you ultimately want. But this one doesn't matter. We can scale it up and it'll be just fine. So we're going to hit scale, and then we want to set it to, remember, 160 and 160. And I guess I'll tell you what, let's escape out of that. Let's go back and let's use uniform scale. So we'll just do 160 because that will also scale the height. Okay, so there's your plate. And then so you could stick this plate on top of that. And obviously, I mean, this plate is much nicer looking than that one, right? So very, very easy. So I'm just going to delete this one because we're not going to print that one anyhow. Now, this does have a rounded bottom. And depending on how exactly rounded that is and so forth will depend on whether or not we would need supports. So that's a potential consideration. So let's go ahead and slice this. Let's click on this. All right, let's see if it's going to require supports. Let's go ahead and fire away. It shows it doesn't need supports. That's good. That's what we wanted. If it did require supports, then we might come in and add more of a bevel to the point where it wouldn't require supports. But it doesn't look like that's going to require supports. So now, do you guys agree with me, or do you guys agree with me that that was not that scary? You could definitely.
It wasn't. I will have to watch it again, though.
It definitely wasn't.
I don't know.
Now, obviously, that's a very basic example, but yeah, Blender can come in handy on certain things, and it's not that complicated. Later in the week, we're going to have a Blender. For those of you who are on our $20 a month tier with the training, we're going to have a Blender class and making the cap box, right? But we're going to. I feel like even though it's kind of a big project, I feel like it's easy enough to do in Blender that you don't have to have any skills. I really truly believe that. So we're going to take it slow and go through the whole process of showing you how to model this cap box that we released the other day, but we're going to make it smaller so it fits on an A1 bamboo printer. Now, remember earlier we were talking about we could resize this, no problem, right? Well, why can't we do that with the cap box? Well, the reason we can't do it with the cap box, this is solid. This is the way Bamboo sees it is it sees it as a solid piece. The cap box has a 2 millimeter thick outer wall. So if we scaled it to fit an A1 Mini, yes, we could scale it, but then our outer wall becomes maybe only a millimeter thick, right? Because all that geometry shrinks when we scale it down. So that's why we can't scale it down. We want 2 millimeter walls. So we have to recreate the model, make it smaller to fit that build plate. So anyhow, we're going to do that. Not only so people with A1 Minis can print it, but also so we can learn how to create that model. So we're going to start in Inkscape, kind of sketch it all out in Inkscape. Take our SVG, instead of going to Bamboo, we're going to take our SVG and go to Blender and build off our SVG and model that little cap box. But I definitely think it's if you watch it and maybe watch it again and then baby steps, try it. I definitely think you could accomplish creating the model. So that's what we're going to try and do later this week. Any other questions? Anything? I do have, if you want to spend a little bit of time, I know we've been talking already for a little while, but I do have maybe 1 or 2 more things I was going to show you. I'm making a couple of can openers. One in particular for Father's, kind of Father's Day related, and then one just somebody asked about. Let's see here. So somebody asked about this one. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Let's go back over and create a new file. Got about 20 instances of Inkscape open here. But this one, and I don't know if Steve is still hanging around. Steve, are you still hanging around? Steve wanted this one. But actually, Steve wanted this one and something else.
Here. Yes, sir.
All right. So, well, as long as you're still here, Steve, we'll do yours then.
Yeah, I didn't ask for the Kool-Aid one, but it's really cool
No.
because I do have a new Kool-Aid koozie.
Oh yeah, maybe we should do this one for you, Steve. This is the other one I was talking about. Yeah, everyone's got the Kool-Aid koozie, right? So I thought that was kind of cool, Dad. So I thought that would be fun for Father's Day. So let's take a look at Steve's here. This, let's see. First, let's just see. I don't know. I haven't tested it, so let's just try and right click and do a trace bitmap. Now you can see what's happening here. The way this looks at it, it only looks at it as black and white. So the gray is gone. The red it sees is black. So let's see if we can back that off a little bit. Aha, we can back that off. Not too much. But I think this is not a great quality image as far as images go. You see how kind of blurry it is? So it's not a great quality image. So if we hit apply, we're probably not going to get a great quality graphic. Well, it made a liar out of me. It's pretty clean. I didn't think it would be that clean. So that means we're in business. We can run with it. So let's go ahead and just double click it. And we'll get rid of that stuff. We don't need that little trademark thing there. So yeah, we can run with this. So all we have to do is break it apart. So path and break apart. And then this piece will give a different color. And we'll come to our object, lower to the bottom. That pushes it to the bottom of the layer stack. And so this piece that's left is the red there. And what we could do is we could select the black, come over here to your fill, and we could use an eyedropper tool. If you really wanted that exact red, we could do that, just like so. And the same thing with the blue. So if this green, we select the green and sample the blue here. We can turn that to blue. And then this will make white. This, we have to actually cut a hole in our blue. So let's do that. So we got our black, shift click the blue, control minus. Now you can see it did not cut the hole like we expected it to. So that's a problem. But let's try another way. We have our black again, shift click the blue and control K this time. And now you can see it did in fact cut the hole there. So we need to do a similar thing probably up here. Let's see what we got going on up here. This right here, we're going to go ahead and shift click our outline here and control K those. That's combined. And so now you can kind of see how that's coming together there. What's going on here? So we have this piece. It's our blue. So let's maybe make that blue. Let's see here. Let's make this white a little bit. There we go. Now we're starting to look like something. All right, so we've got all that taken care of. Now we have to figure out what's going to happen in here. So let's go back here. This piece right here, we want it to be white, firstly. And let's see here. We have this piece. So I think what we need to do with this piece is cut a hole in our blue. So our blue is this outside line and control K. And we'll go back and take a look. Yes, see there? And then this piece needs to go back to white. It is white, but it must be lower in the layer stack than it should be. That's why we can't see it. There we go. So now you can see that we have this logo is basically the same as that one. The only thing that's different here is we don't have this gray outline. But that we can add. So that's not a big deal. So what we need to do then, and this is be a good example of something that we might want to consider. Let me look at this. You see how that's all one? We don't want this to be all one just because we want to be difficult. So I see a lot of times where people have an image like this and they say all the time, well, just use the image to keychain maker on Maker World, right? And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But what I'm about to show you, you can't do with the keychain maker in Maker's World. But and it really can separate you from, anyone can make a design, but you want your designs to be slightly better than the next guy's designs, because then they'll pick you to make their stuff, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little bit extra time making a design a certain way so that we can do something that be kind of interesting. So we're going to go ahead and delete that, and we're just going to keep this. So let's go ahead and take our white pieces and bring those together. Control plus. So now you see we just have, that's union, so that's the same as going to path and union. And of course, this is just one. So now what we want to do is we want to do two separate offsets here. So we'll take this one and we'll duplicate it. So that's path 3. So we'll come back to path 3. We'll give it a color. We'll give it an offset here. I don't know how much. So let's just pick something like 4. 4 is too much. 4 is too much. Maybe 3. Let's try 3. Not 30. We just want 3. 3's better. Let's go with 3. All right. Let's see here. Do I want to go that much? I don't think I do now that I look at it. Let me back that off to 2. All right. I'm going to settle on 2. So there's 2. So let's go ahead and do a path and object to path. Okay, so that takes care of that one. Now we're going to do the same exact thing here. So we're going to go ahead and duplicate it. We're going to come back to path 4, do that same offset of 2. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to path, object to path. Let's give it a different color. Okay, and that's where we're at. So I think we're going to be good to go to bamboo, just like we've got it. Except I do want to create this gray now. Okay, so now I want to create the gray. And I'll explain why I did this when we get to bamboo. So let's go ahead and select that and group that together. And we're going to go ahead and duplicate this group. We'll go to the bottom group, give it a color. Let's see here, something we haven't used already. Let's do red.
Kevin, would you put the red blue outline on top of the green because it looked like it's kind of behind it, or is it not? Or is it just blending in? Okay.
It is. So you see right there, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for what we're doing, it's not going to matter. So that's why I deliberately left it that way. But just to show you that, you know, certain times for what we're about to do, that won't matter. Certain times it does, certain times it doesn't. But in this case, it won't. So I just left it overlapping like that. But we do need that gray outline. So we do need that gray outline. So we're going to come to the lower one, and you will do an offset. And these we did 2. So I want to do this one 3. I want the gray to be thicker. I don't know why. It's just what my heart's telling me. So I think I'm going to run with that. Now you can see here, this one they chopped off. And they chopped off. Yeah, I think we'll do that too. So let's go ahead and, first of all, apply the offset. So object to path. And then we are in a group, so we have to ungroup for the next step. And now we have all those pieces of our group. So we're going to come to path and union. And then you see all these openings. There's quite a few. So we need to go to path and break apart. Then it drops all those openings. But now you can see we have lots of pieces. So we're going to go back to path and union. So in the end, there is our gray border. So if we just go ahead and give it gray, you can kind of get it. It's all coming together now, right? So if we take this, which is, well, we have to ungroup that now. So let's ungroup it. So if we take this and we'll go back to our fill, and let's go ahead and just sample the blue again. Okay, and then let's do the same thing here. Let's take that one and sample the blue from here. Okay, and then yes, we're going to nip off that. So we're just going to, because we don't want a sharp point anyhow. Steve, are you making keychains with these? Is that what, or can openers, or what are you doing here?
Actually, I'm just going to get the logo so I can put it on the front of a koozie.
I got you. Okay.
And then I'll probably make a can opener out of it later.
I got you. Perfect.
Thank you.
So there you go. So we just created a couple of rectangles and nipped that off there a little bit.
What'd you press to cut it off?
Let me just go ahead and back it up here a little bit. I wasn't happy with this one anyhow. So let's move this. So we just create a rectangle, right? And then shift click the gray and then control minus. So control minus is difference. So if we go up here to path and difference, but that's what control minus does. And it just chops it off there. Just like that. And then so we'll create another rectangle over here, just the R key. Put that there. Shift click the gray, control minus. It's just easier to use those keyboard shortcuts than always come up here to, you know, path and yada, yada, yada. Now I do see a little twinge going on there. So we want to fix that. What do we got going on there? Got to figure out what that is exactly. That is not the gray. The gray is solid. So that is the blue. So to fix this little situation here, what we like to do is add a control node just by double clicking. And what that does is it kind of more or less forces the curve to stay right there. And now if we just select all those and delete, see, it anchored it right there. It couldn't move. It could only move to a certain point. And then we have these little control handles that we can then modify that. We could turn those on and off too, this little icon. And sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes we want control handles out of our way, and that's the way to get rid of them. But I just happen to see that particular one. So now visually, if we stand back and look at this, this basically looks like that, right? It's more or less the same. So for a koozie, this has to be 30 tall. So we'll come here, we'll do 30. There we go. So we'll we've got a bunch of stuff going on here, I think. Let's see, let's go look at our layers palette. Maybe not. Maybe, okay, I guess we did start a new file. So we'll go ahead and save this. And we'll call it RR logo. Save. And then we'll go back into Bamboo here. And we'll go ahead and create a new file. And import our RR logo. So we'll go to the desktop here and import RR. Open. It's saying it can't find it. Why? All right, there it is. So it's already sized to the proper size that we need. So let's go ahead and make it 1 millimeter thick because it is going on a koozie. And then let's see, we need gray. We'll darken that red up a little bit like the original. And then we'll take this and we'll go with blue.
Kevin, I said koozie. I don't know why I said it. I meant it's I think it's gonna be the same anyway. It's going on top of one of those
hats,
those ball caps.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's basically one and the same.
Okay.
So we need like a navy and white and gray. Okay, got it. So this needs to be navy. So in that case, we'll make it more navy-like. And then gray. Perfect. All right, so that first piece needs to be filament color 4. And then our next piece needs to be filament color 3. So we're just hitting the 3 key on our keyboard. Our next piece is white, so that's good. And now, what is that? And what is that? That's white. But what is that? I don't know what that is.
That's the blue outline.
Yes, so this is the blue outline also. And then that's the blue outline probably. And this is the red. Yep. And then that is the white, I think. All right, let's run with it and see what kind of mess we got going on. So what we're going to do here is we'll start with the blue. And our base plate is 1. Our blue is 1. So I'm going to move that to 1.5. So we're going to do different than we typically would. So let me go ahead and show you this. Hold on just a second here. I need to look at something here. Oh. Well, we won't worry about that. Neighbor girl's over here, and Mom said it's time for dinner, but she's not going to go over there and eat dinner anyhow. All right, so this should be at 1. So right now, this 1 is sitting directly on top of this one, but for what we're doing, I want that to be at 1. So this is going to be slightly embedded. You see that shadow that's happening there? This is embedded a 0.5 millimeter into the gray. Now, it's a bit of a negative doing that because you do introduce more color changes, but this is just a small little thing that it probably really doesn't matter too much. So that takes care of that. And then this is our red. So the top of this is at 1.5. And so we're going to go ahead and move this to 2. And you can see now that's sitting directly on top. But if we wanted that embedded, then we would back that off to 1.5. So this will be easier, especially if you're putting this on a koozie. This would be easier to do it this way. Now, Steve did mention, now that I think about it, that he actually wants this for the cap. And so for the cap, we want that to be 57. So we should resize it for that. Because then if we don't, then it's going to mess up all of our thicknesses. So what we would do is uniform scale and then 57 on the height. That's how big it has to be for the cap. So you see that. So now this, let's just go ahead and select everything again and scale. But now we're not going to do uniform scale. We'll just make it all back to 1 again. So it's 57 tall. That's how big the logo is for hats. So now we can redo this. So this is 1, and this is going to be 1.5. No, that's going to be 1. It's going to be sticking into the gray, a 0.5 millimeter. Right? This is not 1. So we got to make it 1. Now, let's see. That should be 1, not 1.25. There we go. So maybe this isn't 1. Let me look at that. It's not. It's only a 0.5 when we did our scaling. So now let's look at that. Okay. So now, yes, that is a 0.5 millimeter inside there. So then on the red, we have to make it 1 millimeter thick. But then we're going to put it. So this is 1.5. So that should be a 2. That's going to put it on top. So we're going to back that off to 1.5. So now the red is going to be inside the blue, a 0.5 millimeter. The less thick this is, the better, especially if we're putting it on a koozie. But this is for our hat, so it really doesn't matter anyhow. So now let's figure out the rest of this over here. So I'm not sure I've got this the right color. This should be 2, pretty sure. And so that should be at 1. First of all, let's make sure it's 1 millimeter thick, and it's not. And then we'll put that at 1. So then the white here, we're going to make sure it's 1 millimeter thick. And this will be at 1.5. Okay, so there you go. That's how it all works. So this white is a 0.5 millimeter into this blue.
So you're just jumping back and forth from scale to move tool, scale to move tool. Is that correct?
Wait a minute, I'm almost done. What's that, Steve?
You're just jumping back and forth from the scale tool to the move tool?
Yeah, and that
Okay.
that is incredibly confusing because sometimes I'll be in the move tool and I'll think I'm scaling, but I'm in the move tool, or vice versa. But yes.
And you said the logo for the hat has to be 57 to fit right?
It doesn't have to be, but that is the maximum dimension for the cap box that we're talking about.
Mhm.
The maximum dimension where you have a little bit of space all the way around, it's 57 by 82. That's the magic number. So 82 wide, 57 tall is max for the front of the cap. So I'll go ahead and save this one. Desktop. And we'll call it, just call it our logo. I was trying to think here. I know you gave me another one, Steve, but I don't know where it's at. But I will do that other one that you sent me.
Yeah, no rush.
So go ahead and save that one. All right, so back over here in Inkscape, let's go ahead and file new. Do we want to do one more? Do we want to do one of those Kool-Aid ones, either the Cool Dad or the Oh Yeah?
That's strictly up to you.
We sure do.
I'm game.
Heck yeah.
I want to show you something here that you might want to consider doing. I want to see if I have a better example. So we have this design here, and it's fine. But one of the things, let me go back to, let's see here. But I want to, let's come back to here. So I want to go ahead and ask. Now I pay for ChatGPT, so I use it quite a bit. But for let's see, let's get out of this. For this type of thing, so we've got this image, and I'm just going to ask it to clean up this. Can you simplify this image and clean it up for me? And go ahead and it will take a look at it and see what it can do for me. So this is a very useful tool if it's used properly. We can ask it to do all kinds of things. When I was making the NFL logos, I would just come in here and say, "Hey, give me a black and white image of this logo, a black and white image of that logo." And as long as we have a good black and white image, then we can go into Inkscape and convert it to an SVG very easily. So that's really always the trick. But so you see, this is what it gives us compared to what we started with.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
when we look at it, like, it is crisp, clean, perfect, right? So let's go ahead and save this image on the desktop, and we'll call it Oh Yeah. The problem is Inkscape hates the PNG files that are created there. So let's go ahead and we got to get out of all this. And so, yes, absolutely hates it. So we just double click on it here. I'm on Windows 11, and then we're just going to save it as a JPEG. That's it. That's all we got to do. Desktop, save as a JPEG, and save. Then we can import that into Inkscape. So Control-I, then we'll find it right there, the JPEG version. Go ahead and hit OK. So then we can right-click and trace bitmap and hit Apply. And there we go. There's our vector. And the nice thing about watching these demonstrations is you begin to see the exact same thing over and over and over again. And it really is the exact same thing over and over and over again. So what we're about to do is exactly what we did with the Chanel candlestick. We're going to do the exact same process, and you'll see what I mean by that here in just a second. So what we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, break this apart. So path and break apart. And I bet you can guess what we're going to do. We're going to take that outline, that outside piece, change its color, come up here to layer, and choose the layer to bottom. So lower to bottom. There we go. Right? And then we're going to go, this piece here, we can go ahead and get rid of. I believe that is true. for what we want to do. And then we're going to go ahead and select all of the black. Control K. So now we have that. And now what we need to do is we need to duplicate this green shape. So we're going to duplicate the green shape, and we're just going to slide it down a couple. And what I want to do is this, oh yeah, I want to cut that out of that duplicate green shape. So we're going to duplicate, oh yeah, shift click one of those greens, control minus, and give it a different color just so we could see it a little bit better. So you see what we got there? That's what we need for our keychain. So we're going to go ahead and select it, and let's make it 75. So that's going to be 3 inches long. And then we can go ahead and save this. So Control S, oh yeah, and save. That's what I think is so beautiful about Inkscape. Like you saw, and I don't know, like in Silhouette or other programs, but I know Inkscape, like that was dead easy. Very, very easy workflow. And so now we can go into Bamboo and create our model just as easily. So we'll go ahead and hit Control I, and
I think you selected 75 for the height, not the width.
Well, maybe I did. Let's take a look. Looks like I did. So no worries. So we could just go ahead. We do want to use uniform scale here, so we'll do 75. So that puts it back to normal again. And so remember before we said that I did 4 millimeters. So this one we got to do just a little bit different. So the back plate here is going to be what is it going to be? Let's set that to, so we don't want uniform scale. Let's just set it to 2 for right now. And then the outline, remember that Chanel outline that we had? Let's go ahead and set that to 3. And then the text, think of that as our Chanel text, that is going to be 2. So let's see here. Let's change this color blue here, something like that. And so that's going to be color number 2. Get out of that. So that's color number 2. And then let's see here. Yes, that is color number 2 as well. And then this is, yes, just like that. Okay. So now we have to just kind of put things in order here. So this first one is 2. The second one we said is 3. Half of 3 is 1.5, sitting on top of 2. So that's 3.5. Okay. And then this white piece is 2. So, and it's sitting on top of 2. So that should be a 3. And then that's what it gives us. So that's what I wanted. So I just wanted that recess just a little bit for my keychain. And so you can see how similar that is to the Chanel, right? Because the Chanel text was also recessed. And then all we have to do to kind of finish this off is we have to open up our key tag. So we'll search on my desktop here for that key. There it is. Go ahead and hit OK. There it is. And then we can slide this over. Let's go ahead and change the color. Control 1 to look straight down so we can see its exact placement. And then we can just visually move it out. Big enough for my jump ring. Now, we do see a little bit of an issue right there. You see where there's 2 conflicting meshes there, but I don't think that'll matter once we go in and slice it. But we need to take the key tag, shift control the assembly, right click and merge. So those are one piece. Now if we slice it, we do have an issue. You see there? The blue. That's problematic. And I'm glad that came about because it happens quite frequently and we need to know what to do about it. So the reason that this is happening is because whatever is in the object list last takes priority. And so in this case, the key tag is taking priority, and we don't want the key tag to take priority. So what we want to do is move the key tag up the stack here, and then reslice. And you'll see that the oh yeah now takes priority because oh yeah is printing before the key tag. And so we don't have that conflict.
Now that is good to know.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And yeah, that order of this is really important. The last thing takes priority. So yeah. So
the last thing is what prints first.
Well, I shouldn't say the last thing, right? Because this white oh yeah is printing last. The key thing is that the key tag be above, because we want this to take priority. So even if this was like, if the key tag was the first thing and this one was right behind it and we sliced it, see, we get the same result. The key thing is, so it doesn't really matter where it's at in the layer stack, but when there's two parts conflicting like we had, whatever part we want to be the boss has to be lower in the layer stack. So if we go back and move our key tag, one step lower, so now our white is before and we slice, now the key tag's the boss. And so the slicer where those two conflicted, it will drop out the white and let the key tag be the boss. So you just got to be mindful of how that is stacked up so you get the result that you really want.
Did you make the key tag 2 millimeters as well? I missed that.
The key tag comes in 4 millimeters by default.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really recommend we use, because it's, 4 millimeters is nice and sturdy. And that's why I make these plates 4 millimeters also. So it's
that's
the same.
4. Okay,
Well, this one's actually 5, I think. Didn't I make it 5? Yes, I made this one. See how it's just 1 millimeter different there? So this one I did make 5 because I did it in 2 parts. I did the first piece I did in 2, and then I did 3 on top of it, just so I could have this little recess right here on that.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Sorry, Kevin, quick question. So if you wanted to make this into a key tab also, how wide and how high would you make it, and where would you actually place the part for the opening at, because of the length of it?
Right. Well, probably the most logical place would be to have it here.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and, first of all, when you're dealing with a can opener, is what we're talking about. When we're dealing with a can opener, this plate has to be 6 mil. So we would just go ahead and let's see how we want to do this. So that very bottom plate, let's go ahead. It's currently 2. All we need to do is make it 3. And then the plate that's on top of that is also 3. So you see that's also 3. So what we would have to do is make sure that this is at the proper Z. So this would be 4.5. Okay, so now we've got those 2 parts. Now this is not, the white now is no longer at the proper Z. So I think that would have to be 4.5 as well. So now we've got that. And of course we have our key tag in place. So now let's see if this is wide enough for our can opener. So I'm going to save this. So I'll give you both versions. I'll give you the keychain version and the can opener version.
You might as well do a straw topper too. Make it a set.
Yeah, we could do that too. That's easy enough to do.
That's only right. That's only right.
I'll show you how to do that. Yeah, we could do that. All right, so let's go ahead and Control I. I mean, we got till midnight, right? So go to desktop here, and
Kevin never sleeps.
we type in can. My babies want to eat though. They're like, "Are we gonna go out to eat?" Like, yeah, we're gonna go out to eat. All right, so that's somewhat problematic. So let's go ahead and flip it around here. So you can see that this is now. I'm not opposed to trying this, and just see what would happen. I think this is okay, but it's just something you would have to try. So you can see that this is obviously sticking out, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. So I went ahead and click on this, and you can see that this has two pieces, right? So what we need to do is take our can opener, shift control the assembly, just like we did with the key tag, and merge those two together. Now you can see we can't merge, and that's because they're not selected. So you see we have the one selected, but we don't have the other one. So now we'll go back in and select it over here on the objects panel, and then we can merge. Now on this little can opener thing, we don't need this cube. So we just delete the cube. I just did that so we didn't have to manually move this up in the Z. But now when we slice it, watch what's going to happen here. So we slice it, and we get our hole, but on the back side here, you see that slot? Like there's not enough of this, so there's a little hole there. Now, I don't think that's going to impact the actual functionality of this opening up, but just be mindful of that. Like there is a hole there. Okay? So, but like I said, I think functionally it could still work just fine. So, there are some settings that we have to use when we're doing can openers. I have a custom-made profile. Steve has a custom-made profile. He should. We made it. So right
Yes,
there.
sir. And I've used it twice now.
Can opener. So that's our can opener settings. So we could walk through them real quick here. So when we're doing can openers, we enable support on the build plate only. So that's step one. And then we come down here. Our top Z distance is 0.28. And our top interface layers are 4. So that's everything under support. These are just special settings for can openers. On the speed tab, really the only thing we have to do is slow our bridge down. 15, 20, something like that. The default is 50. So we slow the bridge down. And what the bridge is going to do is right here at the very top, you know, on the inside, this slot goes inside, right? So that bridge is going to go nice and slow because it's not going to be supported. It's going to be supported at this front edge, but when it gets back in here, there's no support back there. So it has to go a little bit slower back in there. So that's the only change on speed. And then the strength tab, you may want to make some changes. I like to use this 4 wall loops. And then down here, these two values kind of almost conflict with one another. Not really, I don't know if conflict is the right word, but you see where it says top shell layers? Our layer height is 0.2. So it takes 5 layers to make a millimeter. And then, so if we, in other words, if we change this value to 2 millimeter thick on top, then this layers for top shell would actually be 10. So this right here will override this, or vice versa. So if we sell it to make it 2, but we're only saying 5 layers, no, it's going to be 10. And then the same is true with the bottom shell layers. And so I would make that 2, because it's real thin down here at the very bottom. You know, that's only a millimeter thick right there. So I would go ahead and make the bottom shell layers a little bit thicker. So that's it on the strength tab. And then on the quality tab, we did these values. Now, some people are having trouble with that initial layer. And Steve and I, we used the cold plate. So if you're having troubles with your first layer sticking, then just go ahead and use a 1/2 mil. That is the default anyhow. But otherwise, to have a nice smooth finish on top, I like to modify those settings. 0.25, 0.25, 0.25, 0.25, and then come down here to the Arachne wall generator. So if we have real small details, that will help maintain those real small details. And then this little disk right here, we can click on that little disk, and then we can save a custom profile. All those settings we just made will be saved. So,
question: will these settings work on any bamboo printer?
Yes. Yeah, you would use the same. Even if you like, you know, we're using a Flash Forge printer or whatever, you would want to use the same settings. Yeah. Yeah. So no matter what, like if you're using Orca, I think that's what Flash Forge uses, or if you're using a Crowdy printer with Crowdy Print, you'll find the same. It'll be a little bit different in Crowdy Print actually, but in Orca would be almost identical to, you know, Orca is almost identical to Bamboo. But when we slice it, now that we made all those changes, now you should see some supports generated. But it's only generating supports on that very lead edge. Inside, there's no supports. On the back side here, oh, it did actually create a little support there too, because it had the opening to do it. And look, even a little bitty support right there. Now, if you can, if you wanted to, you can paint out supports. So if you printed this out and you had a problem getting that support out, I don't think you will, but if you did, you could actually go into Bamboo here and paint that out. So you come back over here. There's an option. Where is it? Where we can. That's fuzzy skin. Where is it at? That's just regular painting. What did I just see? I hate that it blocks your view there. There, I think that's it. Yeah. So if we had to paint out supports, it's that one, and we could just paint supports out. See, if we go like this, say don't put no supports there. I can't get that out. So now when we slice the plate, oh, darn it, it still has supports there. It's not supposed to. So let's see here.
You're on seam painting. Go to the one to the left.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yes. So now if we paint this. Ooh, what did I do there? Maybe because I have the seam painting and erase all painting on the seam, and then go to support. But am I painting support in? Maybe that's what I'm doing.
I think you have to hold the control down, and it erases them.
I got you. No, control doesn't do nothing. Let's erase all painting. So that's painting them in. So you're saying hold the control key down and then paint? No, it won't let me paint with the control key down. Oh, I wonder if you right click. Ah, there we go.
That's what it was. Sorry.
I don't use it very often, but.
Okay, I got a question now that Teresa brought that up, the seam painting. On those koozies, I always put the seam to the back.
Yeah.
Can you paint that out?
No.
Okay.
No, but what you can and maybe should try, as far as the seam, you know, they have the scarf seam, but instead of aligned, you can choose random. And then
when I choose random, it seems like it puts little zits all over around the koozie.
It does. So, you know, so yeah, so it is a bit of a catch-22, but you're right about that. But if you wanted a more uniform look rather than a straight ugly line, then, but yes, you're right. It does do that. The little nubs everywhere.
Come on, technology. They need to step up and fix that.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
I think they don't need, I don't want them to come out with no more printers. They need to improve the software. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I have to agree.
No more printers.
it when I just logged into my Bamboo, it just said it's
Updated. And mine
Yep.
too.
That's because they came out with that new printer today.
I can highly recommend the SnapMaker U1.
Yeah.
So quick question, Kev.
Yeah.
So I purchased the hat file and then you sent it. Then I think I was supposed to send you the image I wanted because I picked Falcons and I think I was supposed to send you the image, right? For you to send me the one logo.
No. I know I missed some people, probably a lot of people. So if you send me an email, it's died down a little bit now. I was inundated with 1,000 emails. So but it's died down a little bit. So I can get you the Falcon logo. That's no problem.
No worries. I was just when you said Steve sent you the RR, I'm like, oh man, I was thinking like, oh, I put Falcons.
Oh no.
Okay.
No, I have all the RR was just because it was a custom logo. But yeah, all the team logos I have, so.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, anything else, guys?
The straw topper.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's real easy. So we could just let's go
do
back.
that real quick and take them babies out to eat.
So go back to this one. This is just our regular keychain one. So on the straw topper, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make this. So we'll make that bottom one. So the whole thing needs to be probably 12 or 14. So I usually make it 14. So this one here, how big is that? That's 3. So let's make this, if I want to do 14, that would be 11. So this one here would be 11. So we'll do that 11. But see, we're over here in the Z. We're in the move, rather. We need to be here in the Z, 11. Make it thick. And then go back over here to the second piece. And it's 3 sitting on top of 11. So that would be 12 and a half. Okay. And then we have to move our white up. And we're going to say that's 12 and a half. Something like that. Okay. And then we are going to right click and add a primitive cylinder. And that cylinder should be 10 mil. It's either 10 or 8. But actually, yeah, we'll leave it at 10 for this example. You can actually modify this a little bit. Depending on if you're using a Stanley Cup or whatever. I think Stanley Cups are 10 mil though. So there we go. And then we'll scale this out a little bit in this direction. It can be something like that. All right. And then we have to take our cylinder and combine it to our assembly. So right click and merge. And Steve got caught up the other night with this. He wanted to turn something into a negative, and he wouldn't let him. So you can only change this into a negative if it's merged as part of an assembly. Otherwise, this change type will not show up. So we'll change it to a negative part. And then we can just kind of position this in place. So in regards to the Z, this is 14 millimeters tall. So the Z should be 7. And then it's just a matter of kind of modifying this to fit in the way we want it to fit in. Let's look at it straight down. I think that'll be a little bit easier. So Control 1. And I just want to see, kind of how this is going to interact all the way through. If we needed to rotate it slightly, I don't think we do. I think that's fine just how it is. So if I go ahead and slice that plate, says that we have some floating regions, probably because of our hole, right? But you see that is going all the way through. I hope it's the hole and not our text. So I'm going to just double check this, that it's not this. I don't want that to be floating. How can I easily check this? So let me look at this. That is 13.5. Okay. To the top of that. So, and this is 2. So 13.5 plus 1 is 14.5. And what is this? I've got it set at 12.5. Well, it definitely can't be 14.5. That's for sure. Well, I tell you what, let's try using our assembly tool just to make sure that is in the right spot. I'm pretty sure it is, but let's just double check it. So this piece here, the very bottom piece, is 13 mil or 11 mil. And then the top piece was 3 mil. So that's where we got the 14 millimeters to begin with. So this piece here being 3, it should be 11 plus 1.5. Yes, 12.5. So that's correct. So this is 2, right? That's 2. So let's just try using the assembly tool and see if it behaves now. So we'll go to our assembly tool and we're going to click that face on the inside there. And we want the white text to be right on top of that. 3509 is what it wants us to move it. And it did. There you go. So now that is for sure at the right spot. So let's go ahead and reslice it. And if it's asking for supports, it's because of our hole. Nope. Did not ask for supports this time. So it must have been that white text. I suspected it was. Now, if we select the white text, we can see what the Z height was. I think we had it set at 12.5. Aha. It should have been 12. So there you go. It was floating in air.
Kevin?
Yeah.
I just had a question because I missed the part. How do you make that, I don't know what you call it, but the indent before you put the lettering, you know, I guess you call it indent. It's like a little, I don't know what you call it. It's indent.
This right here?
Yeah.
Well, what we did, if you remember, when we were in Inkscape, we had this piece solid, and then we duplicated it, and then we had our lettering. But then we did where we actually we took our lettering, we duplicated our lettering, and then we cut a hole in this duplicate piece here to get that effect. And then of course we extruded the thickness so we could get that look of that indent.
Okay.
So it's just using a little trickery. But yeah. So we'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and save this file. Save project as, and we'll call this straw topper.
And Kevin, where will the files be that we could go back and like manipulate, do whatever we want to do to them?
If you're a Patreon member, then they'll be on the Patreon page.
Okay.
But the these live classes are really for the $20 tier. But for the first month, because like I just started doing the training programs, so for the first month I just give all the classes away for free. But in order to get the class files, you do have to be a paid member. Otherwise, you won't see them on the Patreon. So yeah.
Thank you.
That's the one negative, but yeah. So Any other questions?
So you say go on Patreon and that's the paid membership?
Yeah, we have 2 tiers. One tier is $10 and you get all the files that we post throughout the month.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next tier is $20. You get all the files and you get the training classes. So later this week, we're going to have a special Blender class on modeling the hat box. And that will be for the $20 tier members only, that particular class. We have one more week of Mondays that are free. So next Monday, you'll be able to get in on the class, even if you're not a paid member. And we still have classes for non-paid members, but Mondays are specifically set aside for the $20 tier.
Okay.
So yeah, so we did one the other night, just like literally you had like an hour's notice. So I just posted it to the Facebook group, and I forgot what we did, but it was just a pop-up thing. It wasn't something that was planned. So we do periodic live ones just randomly.
And it's the ST. I can't remember the name of your thing.
Facebook group.
No,
yep.
For Patreon.
Oh, for Patreon, yeah, it's the same as the Facebook group. Yep. So if you go to Patreon here, it is STL 3D Warehouse.
I just wanted to verify. I have.
Yep. And and then the Facebook page is the same. Yep. So, and then like I say, we'll make all the announcements on Patreon and as far as the classes go, and on the Facebook page. So we got you covered both ways there. So but in the meantime, between now and next week, if you guys have a project you're working on or a place you're stuck or something you want to see, definitely send us an email, give us as much details as you can, and we'll show you, we'll try to get it in on the training so you can see it, ask questions.
I do have a quick question, Kev. I was watching your hat video and I printed the little tolerance thing you were saying. And I know you use 0.3. When I was doing mine to get like the snug fit, it was like the 0.15, so the 15. Or 0.15. So where again would I put that in Bamboo?
Sure. Let's see if we open up.
Oh, we don't have to go to the hat. It's on here, right? I'm just saying, like, where is it in global?
Okay. I got you. So it could be done globally, or you can select just the part. So if you, I would probably recommend doing just the part. So in other words, let's say we want to make the hat box smaller by 0.15. You would go under quality. So we have the object selected. And then you go under quality and come down here and right here, contour compensation. So if we enter a negative value, it's going to give you more space. If we enter a positive value, well, let's put it this way: on the bottom of the box, if we enter a negative value, it's going to make it smaller. So therefore, your cap would have more space. But if your cap is too loose, then you want to select the cap and do negative, and that would make the cap slightly smaller. But if you did positive with the cap selected, then it's going to make the cap slightly bigger.
So do I have to print it first to know that, or
no? That's why you print the tolerance tester.
Okay.
So if the tolerance
I would just
tester
put on the bottom cap part
is
the negative.
Yes. So yeah, so here you'd be like negative 0.15 or whatever, whatever the tolerance tester told you it was, and then it would just make it that much. I know it doesn't seem like much. This is 1/10 of a millimeter, but it can make all the difference. If you just wanted to print, one thing you could do, if you just wanted to print it, and be sure it fit, just go ahead and do negative 0.5. Now, what's going to happen is the cap is probably going to be a little bit loose, but then you're sure the cap fits. And then the next time you print it, you could then judge, okay, the hat was a little sloppy. Maybe I should back it off to 0.2 or something. You know what I mean? You can then make a judgment based on how loose the cap was. That would be another solution. So
you said 0.5, negative 0.5?
Yeah, that's a 0.5 millimeter. So in the grand scheme of things, that's not much. See, in the design itself, I have it set where the cap is 1 millimeter bigger than the box already. So in theory, it should just fit right on. Now on my printer, I got lucky and it fit right on perfect. But the filament, I was arguing with somebody earlier. She was really frustrated because she bought the file and she was afraid, based on what everybody else was saying, that the lid wouldn't fit. And I was like, well, I mean, everybody's experience is a little bit different, but the filament that you're using really does matter. Like, it does. It just, it's hard to explain. Different filament has different shrinkage values and things, and it's a tight tolerance, you know, already. It's just 1 millimeter. So she's like, well, I bought all these other files and never had a problem. Well, then you got lucky, because trust me, I've bought plenty of files and threads don't fit right and plugs don't plug. And I mean, how many comments have you guys heard about the koozie lids not fitting snugly like they're supposed to, right? So
when you change filaments inside, then boy tell you that certain filaments have certain shrinkage.
Yeah.
It notifies.
Oh, where
you
it say that, Kia?
Like when you change from maybe PLA to PET G and you slice it, you know how all them boxes pop up? It'll tell you that. It did that to me a few times.
Which printer? Which printer you using? Because
I'll be using
the X2D.
I'll be using the X2D and the
That's why it's doing
H2S.
that. The X2D do send them signs. But my P2Ss don't send them warnings.
Oh, I got a P1S, so I'm pretty sure it ain't gonna tell me.
Kevin, can I ask a question? Because I just need clarification. You said if the lid was too tight to go in, and on the lid add a negative and then the point, whatever your tolerance test said?
No. So did you already print a lid?
I printed the lid and it was too tight. It wouldn't go on.
Okay. So in that scenario,
printed the tolerance test. And for me, it looks like the 0.10 is what fits snug.
Okay. So what I would do is this. As long as you didn't damage the lid, somebody was saying, this guy was saying that he broke his lid trying to jam it on the box. So as long as your lid is not otherwise damaged, then reprint the box, right? Because the box is half the print time as the lid. So reprint the box, but then if you do that, if you reprint the box under the XY, you're going to do a negative value. So you're going to do a negative 0.15 or a negative 0.3. I would probably encourage you to even, so if the tolerance tester tells you negative 0.1, just go ahead and double it. Now we're talking about 1/10 of a millimeter. So even if you did negative 0.2, then for sure, your lid will fit, right? Now it might fit just a little bit too loose, but then the next time you print it, you'll know, okay, I need to back that off back to 0.1 for real.
Okay,
right?
I did it backwards and I'm reprinting it. I think I did it on the lid and not the box.
Yeah. So if you need the lid bigger, right? If you need the lid bigger, then you have to add, right? So you got to go outside because negative is going to shrink. So positive is going to make bigger.
So at my negative 0.15, you saying I should double it to 0.30?
I would.
Negative 0.30?
I would.
Okay.
Because then for sure, your lid's going to fit. It may be a little bit loose. Did you see my video where I was demonstrating how like tightly my lid fit?
Yeah.
That's
And
how
that's what I want.
yeah, that's what I wanted, right? But
Mhm.
I would rather have your first print be slightly looser
Mhm.
than you normally would want, because then you can next time you can always just back it off a little bit, right?
Versus wasting. Yeah.
But versus being frustrated and having two lids there that now what you can do is that that other lid's not wasted, the one that didn't fit, because all you do is you go back to the box, right, and shrink the box to fit the lid that didn't fit on the first box. You see what I'm saying? So it's not wasted. It's not wasted. You just you have to print a new box and shrink it a little bit. And that's where that negative value comes in. You're going to shrink the box to fit the lid now.
And
So
we're only shrinking in these places. See, my issue when I was on the light box, I was trying to shrink it in the scale thing, and
yeah, well,
that's wrong.
I see. I talked to somebody earlier about that. She's like, well, why wouldn't I just scale it? Well, the problem with scale is you don't know how that relates to millimeters, right? Because you're scaling 99.33% or whatever, right? What does that mean in terms of millimeters? How much are you actually scaling it, right? So here, this is very incremental, small. The most you can, the biggest value you can use here is 2 millimeters. So that's why we don't want to use scale, because we don't really know exactly how that relates to millimeters. Where here we know, okay, it's tight. We need to back it off by 1 millimeter or whatever, and we're able to control it a lot more carefully here. So yeah. So if your lid doesn't fit, just print a new box, but enter a negative value, and then reprint it, and then the lid will fit the new box.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Why is strong? Why you got the straw going in through the long way?
Oh, you want to go the other way? You want the straw going the other way? Well, fine.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask that too, but but I thought maybe it was just too heavy, so you did it that way.
Oh no, that was just personal preference. But yeah, you could go. All you gotta do is rotate it, go that way, and then it'll sit on. I thought I saw some that were vertical, but yeah, if you want to go that way, you go that way. All you gotta do is rotate it.
I actually like them both ways.
There you go. So yeah, but that's one of the nice things about using a negative, right? Instead of actually slicing the hole, because if we use the smaller 8 millimeter straw, we wouldn't want that big a diameter hole anyhow. But that's one nice thing about using the negative is you can have it either way, or if you didn't want this and you just wanted to use it as a keychain, then you wouldn't have a hole through it already. So yeah. So yeah, those negative parts are really the way to go when you're trying to cut holes and stuff, because it doesn't have to be permanent that way. Well, I thank you guys for coming, sticking it out. Had a good crowd tonight, and I will post this video so you can suck it all in. And I would love for you guys to experiment with that blender. Watch that candlestick part. I think you can manage it. And I think once you have success on a small project like that, then you're ready for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, just kind of build your skills. But, yep.
Well, thank you for doing this class.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, maybe we'll see you next week on Monday, and then later this week for the blender class if you're gonna partake in that.
Thank you.
All right, guys. We'll see you again.
Thank you again.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
You seem like you're doing a lot better now.
Yeah. Now that I know that Zach is in jail for no reason.
Wait, what?
Yeah.